Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Caped Crusader, Cody, and we are keeping it geekly with our returning guest, Ross Radke. We're here to break down so much Kaiju goodness, but before we get stomped, let's break down what's been up since you last been on.
Last time I was on, I started a webtoon, which was for their call to action contest, which I did not place in. But I got really inspired by working in that format, and so I'm going to be continuing that next year. I do have a few more episodes planned to release before the end of this year, but I have to wait because of the contest. I have to wait another month, I think, before I'm allowed to upload. So that's been kind of like a little detour I took away from Stomped. But yeah, right now I'm all focused on this next issue of Stomped.
So the last time we talked, I think was like interview 22. You were interview 199. So we're one more to go until 200.
Nice.
How did that Kickstarter go for you? I mean, I think we were right in the middle of it. So how did that end up going for you? How was fulfillment for you? And just overall the process for issue 3?
That one went great. I mean, each one that we've done has been a significant increase over the last one. So, and this one, issue 4, is on track to do that again. But yeah. The comic was pretty much already done when this campaign started, so I just had to send it off to the letterer, format the file, send them to the printer, and had a pretty quick turnaround. Figuring out the most cost-effective way of doing all the shipping and stuff is always a constant learning process, but I think that hopefully everyone who got their stuff already has been happy. It's 100% fulfilled. There's always a few with the commissions. You never know how long it's going to take to actually draw everything, depending on how many you get. And then obviously like packaging the larger format stuff is a little bit trickier, but that was I think that one went really well, and I'm hoping this one goes really well. We're getting kind of into the holidays, so by the time I'm doing fulfillment, it's going to be kind of chaotic. But yeah, my goal is to get everything, all the print rewards sent out by the end of the year. Some of the commissions and things might end up taking a little bit longer.
No, I got my copy right here. I holy crap. I read this and loved every bit of it. We were talking backstage about I wasn't prepared for how deep it got. We were talking previously, and I had an idea of how this had different point of views of how the Kaiju affects everyone, but this holy crap. I just love how you take the whole different aspects I didn't even conceive of, scientists having to land on these things to study them was such a unique thing that I didn't even think of. What was some of your inspiration when going into some of these stories and creating them?
The original idea for Stomped was I was really interested in placing giant monsters in a world very similar to ours, and kind of looking at what would happen, how people would react to that. And so I kind of charted out a little bit of a timeline from 2000 to 2020. If the giant kaiju started appearing around 2000, where would we be at today? Mm-hmm. And so these stories all take place at different points along the timeline, and they kind of focus on really focusing on the human perspective a lot of the times. The kaiju are treated more like natural disasters. They're kind of just there and in the background a lot of the times, and there's no giant robots, there's no monster battles. It's more about people doing their best to pull together and figure out how they're going to handle this new status quo, this new world that they're living in, where these monsters just keep appearing all across the world. They don't really know where they're coming from. They don't know really how to even kill them, because they heal so quickly, and their skin's so tough, so they can't just like your traditional Godzilla or whatever. You're not just gonna be able to just send nukes all around the world. So
especially because by year 2020 there's over 350, and they've only been able to kill 14 of these guys.
Yeah, so that's what it says in the little synopsis blurb at the beginning, which was kind of just a joke. It actually says 14 and a half, which I explained to one of my collaborators what the deal is with the half, but I'm not going to reveal that one yet. That was actually one of the stories I had originally written that actually did not get drawn. So I'm saving that one for maybe including it if I do a collected volume of all these stories at some point in the future. But yeah, the idea is that they for the most part, they just have to learn how to live with the kaiju and around the kaiju, and have how are they going to react if one's coming into their city? Like, what is the proper evacuation procedures and things? I've spent a lot of time around that, and this makes it sound like this is like the comic isn't that technical. Like, it doesn't like go into all of this, but you can tell in the story is like there's some thought has gone into what's going on and who's doing what. So yeah, that's kind of the whole approach I want to do, is just take that really human perspective and treat them as outlandish and ridiculous a concept as they are. And it does spin off into some kind of wacky sci-fi territory with them creating kaiju and animal hybrids and things like that. But I didn't want to ever lose sight of the human perspective. That's for sure.
I really liked just how deep you got with these characters too, seeing their everyday lives and how they're affected by the kaiju, and like some of the more like deeper, darker parts of what happens to them as a result of the kaiju as well. Now, from our last talk, if memory serves me correct, these contain 2 stories within each featuring its own separate kaiju.
Yeah. So each issue, see, I've got them sitting right here. So like, for those who haven't seen them, they each have 2 main stories that are 12 pagers, and then some bonus material. So there's in the first issue there's a little 2-page kind of like a funny PSA thing, and then in the other 2 issues there's a 6-page backup story, and then sketchbook stuff and pinups and things. So issue 4 being like the end of this, right? It's like this is the final issue. What can readers expect within this book? So issue 4 is going to be even bigger. So the first 3 issues were all over 40 pages. This one's going to be over 60 pages.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure we'll hit our stretch goal. So it's probably going to end up being 68 pages, which is the maximum that our printer will let us do in a like staple bound comic. And then also, if we hit our other stretch goal, I'm going to include a centerfold fold-out page. So it'll be like 3 pages wide that folds out in the middle, that has a kaiju size comparison chart.
Oh, so that's so cool.
That's the big stretch goal. So hopefully we can hit that, and I can include that. As another the Kaiju podcaster said, that kaiju fans love to compare sizes. So so
speaking of that, like I've interviewed quite a few kaiju creators, and you are like prolific in the scene. Like like anytime there's kaiju talk, I always hear Ross like getting brought up in the conversation.
That makes me feel good, because I mean it's definitely a genre that I feel like is like having a big resurgence. It's still very niche. It's not gonna replace superheroes or horror anytime soon, but yeah, definitely. And at first I thought it was just because since I'm into the genre now, I was noticing it more, but I really do think that it seems to be becoming more and more mainstream. I'm sure the Pacific Rim movies probably helped a lot with that, and then of course Godzilla versus Kong was so successful. So now it's kind of like a bandwagon thing that everyone seems to be trying to jump on, but it's such a fun genre that I'm not going to judge anyone if they want to do a kaiju story. That's fun. It's just a fun genre.
And I mean, I think I remember you said before this you've watched pretty much every kaiju movie out there, right?
When I started this project, I wanted to do a deep dive and kind of do my homework, because prior to this I had just kind of a vague knowledge of Godzilla and the other kaiju films. But now I've watched every single Godzilla film. I've watched every Gamera film. I've watched the first season of Ultraman, and a whole bunch of other monster movies kind of scattered throughout the history. I've been trying to read some kaiju related comics and things, but I haven't been reading as much as I've been watching. But still, yeah, it's been fun. It's been interesting because I think sometimes people are afraid to do a deep dive into a genre when they're working in that genre, because they're afraid of being either discouraged because they're like, oh, all my ideas have already been done, or they're afraid that they'll start to like incorporate too much and not have an original take. I don't that's not how my brain works. I'm like, I would rather know everything that's out there, let it all kind of stew inside, and what's going to come out is going to be its own thing, because I have my own weird entrance. Like I mentioned earlier, the dark humor in Stomped comes more from like a Coen Brothers movie like Fargo or something than anything I've seen so far in most like kaiju. I'd say like the closest to that would be like Shin Godzilla has that kind of satirical tone to it. But so it's definitely that type of stuff is what I respond to the most, more so than the like giant monster wrestling matches. And so that's where I'm taking my stories.
I really think it's a perfect blend of the dark humor with the kaiju, and I also really like how you focus around the lives of these individuals, like as they're like trying to live with the kaiju. It does feel like this would be like what it would feel like if this was done, you know, in our real-time life, you know, like the way we would have to handle it, the way we would try to handle it. There's like some espionage in this too. Like, dang, it's like, I love it. But we were talking backstage. You said the fourth issue gets even like darker and deeper, right?
I won't say darker, but it is a little bit more, it's less action oriented and more kind of focusing on the human narrative. So this issue 4, there's two main stories. So Toxicity is about Dr. Albert Stein, who was introduced in issue 1. He's the father of Kim Corrigan, who's the world's only superhero. And so this is earlier in his career. He's trying to figure out a way of killing the kaiju with this neurotoxin that he's developing. So that one kind of gives a little bit of a little hint of kind of the story with Kim and Dr. Stein, their background, while kind of not. It's still, you know, focusing about, okay, what are we going to do about this kaiju that's wandering around the town? And then the other story is one that is really kind of very different than the others. It's very personal. It's about two brothers who are living, and they're basically in lockdown. A kaiju has gone past their city and they're sheltering at home. One of the brothers is autistic with high behavioral support needs. So that one was definitely like something I would have never, you know, 5 years ago, I would have never had an idea for a story like this. But at the start of 2020, right when the pandemic started, I got a job working for a organization that provides job coaching supports for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the workforce. And when I started, a lot of people lost their jobs or quit their jobs because of the pandemic, and so they didn't have job coaching hours for me. So I ended up subbing at a residential program, a group home. And so a lot of the experiences that I've had with the clients that we support in that type of a setting definitely inspired and kind of informed this idea for like, yeah, what would you do if you were, you know, kind of like stuck at home like many of us were at the start of the pandemic, with someone who didn't understand what was going on, didn't understand why they weren't allowed to go out and do the things that they used to do. So I think hopefully people will appreciate that one for what it is. I hope that people don't, I hope nobody's offended by it. It is kind of honest in its depiction of, at least based on my experience. Also at the start of the pandemic too, there was a bunch of fires in California and Oregon. So it was like you couldn't even go outside in the backyard without inhaling a bunch of ash out of the air. So that's kind of where that idea came from. And it's not, you know, it's not autobiographical by any means. I've definitely, it's definitely a made up character, a made up story, even though they bear a passing resemblance to me. I will admit that. But I think autism, that's something that's not readily like, you know, you hear about heroes or individuals having autism in comics, but like seeing the actual of, you know, how they would react and trying to stay true to that, you know, I think that is important to having in comics for people to read, especially for people who have autism, to see like them being represented in comics. I think that's important. I think one thing too that I'm definitely a lot more aware of now than I was a few years ago is that a lot of representation of autism in media is kind of your Rain Man stereotype, where someone is very high functioning in one area, kind of a savant, and not everyone is like that. Not everyone has a special gift. Some people just it's a huge spectrum, and so this is, I think, a character that I don't think I've seen in media, at least not very often, and definitely not like in this type of a story. So yeah, again, I'm kind of nervous to do something like this, but hopefully people can, enjoy it and kind of can hopefully, get something out of it that they weren't expecting, maybe.
It sounds like, was it challenging for you to write too, like the script and everything? It sounds like it might have been a little bit like tougher than the rest of the stories.
It wasn't tricky to write. It's more because I'm drawing from personal experiences and people that I've worked with, like just wanting to be respectful without sugarcoating it. That's okay. What was tricky.
I gotcha.
Like when you're working in a group home and you're wiping an adult man's ass, because he needs help toileting, like things like that people who have done those type of jobs definitely will be able to relate to. But people who haven't done support work like that, like there's a level of I don't know what to call it. There's a certain level of intimacy when you're caring and providing for someone's basic needs, making sure they're taking a shower, brushing their teeth, getting their meals, taking their meds, getting to bed on time. Like that's something that it definitely changed my life. Prior to this, I worked at Walmart for 10 years, so it was a huge shift in my focus and like my daily routine to go from being all about profits and stocking the shelves as quickly as we can and riding everyone's ass all the time to just like very focused on just a few individuals and just helping them have the best possible life.
It probably felt way more rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, I love what I do right now. I actually manage the vocational program, so I run the job coaching program now. So I've been doing that for about 2.5 years. So it's been very rewarding, and I'm glad that I am able to put some of that into my work. And I just hope that it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not. I hope it's not too much of a curveball for people who've been reading all the issues up to this point.
The big thing is like that stuff doesn't stop. If Kaiju suddenly appeared, those individuals still need cared for. They still need, to have their lives like as good as possible. So I think it's important that you cover that. I think right now would be a perfect segue. Let's go ahead and pull up the campaign for issue 4 and see what it's all about. So we are looking at Stomped Complete Kaiju Anthology, issues 1 through 4 of the Epic Shared Universe Kaiju Anthology comic series, monster-sized 4th issue. Currently at $4,815 of a 6,000 goal. Holy crap, Ross! Like 6 days into it with 92 backers, just straight stomping it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. How are you feeling right now? This seems like it is just on fire.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe how quickly we climbed and hit that like 50% mark, basically by the end of day 1. And I got a major shout out. One backer picked the $1,000 tier, which is like it's going to be like 3 fully painted commissions and
wow,
the all the comics and a print. And so yeah, like that right off the bat, like boom, I was like, okay. But then it kept going and going and going. Even if that person hadn't backed it, like we'd still be doing really well. So, especially based on kind of the trend that you see, every one of these Kickstarters I've done, you have this huge shoot up the first couple days, and then it just plateaus. And we've kind of we've hit that curve, but we haven't gone flat yet, which is nice.
All right, let's check it out. Right here is the link. Everyone watching, be sure to check this out with us. If you're unable to back, simply retweeting this on Twitter or Facebook. It helps get the word out just as much. It's 100% free, and it'll aid to the success of this campaign. So let's go ahead and watch this video and see what the hype's all about. It looks like it's like one of those like dust like dudes like underneath a microscope.
Yes, that's what I sent him a reference. There's something called a sea pig, which is like I don't know if it's a type of sea slug or sea cucumber, and then tardigrades. I was like something like that, like something, I wanted something that was a little bit visually different than the reptiles and insects that we've had in the previous issues.
So let's go ahead and check out some of this art. This is gorgeous. So is this for issue 4 or is this for
that's from the first issue?
Okay. Yeah, this is gorgeous too. Is this so a print? It looks like we see a handful of kaiju right here.
Yeah, so this is from the first issue. This is the mantis that attacks Madrid, and then the hybrids that they send to try to stop it. And that For those of you who have read that issue, know that doesn't really go that well.
That seems like something we would do in an effort to stop them as well.
Yeah, it's kind of my. There's a reason I wanted to do that one for the first issues. It's kind of the most kind of your classic, the closest we would get to a Godzilla versus Kong, right? So.
Yeah, so we're talking about the cover. So that other kaiju is from the story that I drew, and isn't a major component of the story, other than just being in the background and the reason for the story that we're gonna see. So yeah, there's not much to say about that one.
I love the glowing eyes and the almost like armored shell. It kind of reminds me of like this gnarly looking like bug, you know, like the little bugs when you pick up a big rock and a big like roly-poly rolls out from underneath it.
Yeah, I mean, this one, since it didn't have to do anything in the story, I didn't have to worry about the mechanics of it the way I have to other kaiju. Like, so it could be as weird as I wanted to, since you're just seeing it on the horizon, basically. So
yeah, as we stated,
all the other ones I have to work out, you know, how they function in the story, how big they are, what claws and teeth and tentacles they might have. So
that's interesting though, because that's not something I guess a regular like consumer would think about. But as like the artist and writer, you'd have to know the science of it to make it make sense in the story.
Yeah, for issue 3, when they're you have the base jumpers trying to land on the kaiju to collect samples, like I had to really think about how to depict the scale, and a lot of it had to do with the scales. So making sure that the creature's scales were to scale with depending on how far away we were and how close on, like it was not. I started drawing it and I hadn't thought all of that stuff through before I actually started putting lines on the paper, and then I got to a point where it's like I should have planned this better.
He's like, next kaiju is not having scales.
Thankfully, with with working digital, I can crop, resize, work with layers. But yeah, so it was nice for that one. I didn't have to think about it. I could just draw something as crazy as I wanted to.
So we are looking at the most massive issue of Stomped yet at 60 pages, and here are 2 of the stories. So the first one being Brothers, with art by Ross himself. 2 brothers, one autistic with high behavioral support needs, shelter at home while a kaiju passes through their city. So are you the writer and artist for that?
Yes. Yeah.
So how's that feel, kind of being in both shoes?
I mean, that's why I draw. Like I've always drawn because I had stories I wanted to tell. So that's pretty natural to me. I've never drawn just for the sake of making a cool looking picture or a cool looking image. So, one-off illustrations, cover work, concept art, that stuff's fun, but it's not as natural to me. I have to really think about it in terms of like you're like, it's just a different type of mindset versus storytelling. So I feel a lot more comfortable with the comic book page and storyboards, things like that, where I'm thinking about things in sequence. That's doodling. I've been doodling my whole life, but it was always because I wanted to tell stories. I mean, that's why I came to comics eventually. It took me a while to realize, like, oh, duh, like that's what I should have been doing all along. But yeah, so it's fun. It's fun to collaborate too, because for Stomped, this is the first time I've written for other artists, and it's so fun to send a script off to someone and then get pages back that it's nice to have the ability to wear both hats, and I plan to do both in the future, writing for myself, writing for others, drawing for myself, drawing for others. That's part of the fun of comics, is finding those collaborations that just work. And I've been really lucky on Stomp so far. Like, all of the collaborators I've had have been really great and amazing. And so that's kind of a good segue into the next story, which is drawn by Dominic Black. And so he drew traditionally. So he inks on paper and scans those files and send them off to me, and I colored them. So based on the script that I had sent him.
And this one is about an arrogant geneticist, Dr. Albert Stein, creates a toxin he believes will incapacitate the Kaiju. So this seems like a really, I love just how there's like so much, like, it seems like nefarious scientific stuff going on behind the scenes. I don't know how much of issue 3 you want to spoil, so I won't really dive into too far of that territory, but I mean, there was like some stuff going on, especially with the one lady we were talking about. At the end, when the doctor like comes up to her, I'm like, dude, what exactly is going on with this Kaiju stuff?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's entirely obvious, but the older female scientist who appears in both issues of issue 3, or both stories in issue 3, is the same person. It's just many years have passed, and she was using an alias in the first story.
Okay.
So I mean, me and Hugo's art styles are a little bit different, but let's see. I don't know if you'll be able to see this.
Oh yeah, we could pull you up.
So that character is meant to be. I mean, this is going to kind of spoil the ending, but let's see. Is meant to be that character. So
see, and that was the ending where I thought it was really interesting, because the Kaiju, they're trying to exterminate them, but they're also like, I guess, like taking like medicinal properties from them. It seems like trying to incorporate like Kaiju stuff.
Yeah, and that's also kind of alluded to in the second issue in the story Mass, with the big lump of Kaiju flesh that starts to grow and take over the lab. So then this is Stein from issue 1. He's reappearing in this story as well. So yep. Originally, when I had planned this series of short stories, they weren't connected. They were loosely set in the same world, but they didn't have so much connective tissue. But then as I started working on it more and more, I was like, oh, this person could be involved in this, and this thing could connect with this. So yeah, that's been kind of the fun thing that I wasn't expecting, is actually how, while each story does still work as a standalone little horror short, for people who've read all, I think once people have all 4 and read them back to back, and I'm even going to include a chronology, so you can read the stories in the chronological order that they happen in the history timeline.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I think people will, okay, like start to theorize how these things are all connected.
And then we also have After the Kaiju. So that seems like it's an interesting thing too. Is that like its own little short?
Yeah. So Guy Pradel, he did this one of the stories in issue 2, and this story that I'm including in issue 4 is why I reached out to him for issue 2. So he had done this short black and white story that was, I guess, originally for a zine that never ended up being printed. So I asked him, I was like, hey, like, could I include this in the next issue of Stomped? And he said that would be okay. So I'm coloring it. Hopefully I don't ruin his beautiful line art. He's got so much great detail in his cities and things that I'm kind of taking a different approach to the coloring. It's a little bit more just like wash in quotations because it's digital, but I'm kind of just like letting it just be like kind of a colors, and kind of, you know, not getting too much into the detail, because I want those lines to really pop. So yeah, that one's fun that we get to include that one. The next one is as Jonah, which is going to be drawn by Chris Doré. He's making good progress on it. I don't have any finished pages yet to share from that, but as soon as I get something, I'll show you. But he's all working digitally, but he's penciled it all and has started to do some flat colors to kind of get the tone right. And that story is about it's got pirates. It's modern day pirates. So that one's fun. Kaiju and pirates. I guess that's all I'll say about that one.
So is that going to include like a water kaiju then?
Yes, that'll be the first fully
let's
aquatic
go.
kaiju. And I was going to mention that earlier. So like in the synopsis, when it talks about how there's over 350 kaiju on the planet, well, that sounds really bad, but the planet is, covered in over 70% ocean. And so the proportion of kaiju that are actually on land is also comparable. So out of those 350, more than half of them are still living underwater. And of the ones that are on land, you'll see, especially if I get to do the if we hit our stretch goal, I get to do the size comparison chart. There's ones like the mantis and the one that appears in issue 3 in Africa that are huge, like city destroyer size kaiju. But then other ones, like the one in issue 1 that Kim Corrigan kills, and the green tentacly one in this issue, they're like a few stories tall. So like they're not knocking down skyscrapers, but they're big enough to cause some serious damage, especially if they get upset.
Okay. And then we also have a PSA from Ron Rabbit as well. So what's that PSA going to look like?
So that's a nice little bookend, because at the end of issue 1, we had the 2-page PSA drawn by Matt Strackbine. And so he's going to come back and do another one. So this is kind of, the first one was a parody of the duck and cover videos made during the Cold War, telling kids that if we were going to get nuked by Russia, all you had to do was hide under your desk and you'd be okay. It's a real PSA that it's like got a cartoon turtle. They referenced it in the movie Iron Giant, and so this one is going to be also referencing a PSA that anyone who grew up in the 90s should be familiar with, but I don't want to give it away yet.
Okay. But. And then, of course, we're going to have sketchbook pages, pinups, and more, with a stretch goal announced when we hit 50% of the goal, which you've already hit 50%, right?
Yeah, I got to update the main page here, but if you click on the updates page, I outline at 6,500, we will do, so yeah, that one. The second one.
Oh, the second one?
Or I guess the first update, but the second one down on the page. Sorry. Yeah, so at 6,500, we will do an additional 8 pages. I'm going to add a pinup gallery. I have a few artists lined up already. Some will be brand new artists to the Stomped universe, and some will be artists who've contributed to previous issues. And then if we pass 7,000, that's when I'm going to include the centerfold size chart.
Okay.
Based on how well we're doing with our funding right now, like I have no doubt we'll hit those. So I'm really excited about that, because that's something I've been wanting to do since the first issue. But just including that in the issue itself increases the cost per issue from the printer quite substantially. So that's just something that like I have to make sure we raise a certain amount so I can eat that extra cost.
That stuff was always so cool, though. I always remember opening up a comic book and there being a poster inside of it, and it just being the coolest thing ever.
I'm also talking to one of the artists who worked on the backup for issue 2, and so we might also have a world map that shows where all the kaiju attacks have occurred.
Oh, dude, so that is really cool. I love that. I love that. Okay, let's go back. It's awesome you're cross-promoting with John, too. We had John on Wednesday, so we were just talking about Drumsticks of Doom a few days ago.
Yeah, I got to do a pinup for that. I'm a drummer myself, so when I saw
a
comic about a heavy metal drummer fighting demons from hell and werewolves and things, I was like, that is awesome. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, can I draw a pinup for this? He's like, sure.
So here is a look at some of the Stomped universe as well. So this was the does this go like through them like chronologically? Is this the first one?
That's the first issue, yeah.
Okay.
So I've just got like one sample page from each story.
And are these like the half like mutated kaiju?
Yeah, so those are human-made ape kaiju hybrids. So
hideous looking.
I wanted to get a Kong style kaiju in there, so I figured that'd be the way to do it.
I love the hand on the nose too. Like it's such an awesome little nod.
Yeah, that one's definitely very much like kind of Jurassic Park inspired, with humans thinking that they've created these things that are going to serve them, and turns out it doesn't work out the way they planned. And
then right here we have Kim holding up a huge kaiju foot. I didn't get a chance to really read too much into her, but she seems like such a badass. Are you we were talking last time, you're gonna do something with her, right? Like, is there gonna be a series that spins off with her?
Yeah, so before I could put together this anthology, my original idea was I had an idea for like a mini series or a graphic novel and so she was the main character that kind of inspired this whole universe. And so after I finish the anthology, my plan is to follow up and tell that original story that I had first come up with. So that's her. So like she is a a young woman with kind of a troubled past. Her dad, we've already kind of established in these issues, as a bit of a mad scientist, basically, and she has superpowers. We don't know where they came from, but that first issue is kind of her first public reveal of her ability to kill these kaiju.
I love right here too, her saving the dog. That'd be something that my significant other would do. Like running out to save a dog from a gigantic kaiju stomping down. And then we have this is issue 2.
Yep.
So what's going on with this cover? It looks like something is growing in here that's rather interesting looking.
Yeah. Also, before I forget though, so that first issue, the first story was drawn by Andre Diaz. I mean, you saw his name on the screen. I just want to make sure I give him a shout out, because he was the first person that I kind of roped into working on this project with me. He took a big leap of faith, because we had no idea how the first Kickstarter would go. So I always want to make sure I don't forget to mention how appreciative I am of him for working with me on that one. So then the second issue, the one in the tank, so that's from the story Mass, which was drawn by Hugo Field Permoy, who's actually a friend of Andre Diaz. They're both from Spain. And so that one's more inspired by The Thing by John Carpenter. That's very much a kind of a creepy horror. Takes place in a lab at an undisclosed location, and they have this hunk of kaiju flesh that they got somewhere, and they're studying it, and it starts to grow, and things kind of spiral out of control from there.
Oh yeah, this thing looks hideous too. I love just like the design and concept of these kaiju. They look just so graphic, and like this one just looks gruesome, like with the tentacles and the teeth coming out of its mouth.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the idea of it's growing back. It's like kind of like a starfish, right? You can take any chunk of starfish and it's grow into another starfish. So like this is just a hunk of flesh that's trying to grow back into a kaiju, but it's not quite symmetrical. Its pieces aren't kind of growing back the way they're supposed to. So yeah, that was like a big thing is we wanted it to not feel so much like an animal that has it's 4 limbs or yeah.
And then here we have the second kaiju as well. So it looks like we are trying a unique way to take this kaiju down. What, speaking of starfish, like what are these? These look like little bombs?
Yeah, so in this one, this drawn by Guy Pradel, those are his they're basically little drones that have a toxin in them. I mean, so there's a little bit of connection with this issue. They have a neurotoxin that they're trying to inject into the kaiju that'll weaken it so that it can't regenerate so quickly when they bomb it. So yeah, so I didn't give him any description for what the robots would look like, and I mean kind of said like spidery or something, and he came up with these really cool like soft limbed robots, which to me actually makes perfect sense. They kind of have like a rubber tire kind of like flexible feel to them, but they this is earlier in the issue. There's a prototype version that looks a little bit more like rounded, and this was like the military version. They drop them out of the helicopter and they attach to different parts of the kaiju and then inject the toxin into it.
And then here we have issue 3, which of course is the one that I read, and it is a heavy hitter. I had a blast reading it. Now here are some of the rewards that we can be expecting. Digital comics, of course. We have those starting out at $6 for issue 4, and then you can get the complete stomped, you can get the physical for $12. Now you can get the complete bundle PDF for $16. That is such an awesome price.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing I forget to mention a lot is these aren't 20-page comics. Like the first 3 are all over 40 pages, 44, 44, 48, and then this final issue is going to be at least 60 pages and hopefully 68 if we hit that stretch goal. So, you know, if people are looking at that price, I mean, I honestly, I think I price things well compared to other Kickstarters I've seen. But also I'm giving you like twice as much as what other Kickstarters are giving. Not trying to throw any shade, because the realities of printing and shipping and paying collaborators. I mean, we all, those of us who do this know how expensive that is. But I really want this to be affordable for anyone. Like that's why, you know, I tried to keep the digital, you know, reasonable, so anyone who's curious can check it out. I really want as many people as possible, anyone who loves giant monsters, I want them to be able to read this comic.
So we have the Stomped issue 4 Remark series or signature at 18, so that'll have a quick little doodle and a signature from you.
Yep. So each issue will have there's a synopsis page in the front, and so that's where I do whichever is the like feature kaiju on the cover.
Okay. Well, that's really cool. And then we have the print bundle. So this is outstanding price too. You get all 4 physical copies at $30. That's the price of a graphic novel with probably what, double the pages in it?
Oh yeah. Let's see. This is gonna end up being over 180 pages worth of comics. So.
And then $10 more, you get the signed print bundle. So that's the outstanding price as well. Comic and sketch at $50. So you get a loose pencil and pen drawing by Ross on a 6.5 by 10 copy paper, and you choose the character, existing only, no originals. So
this one, when I order them from the printer, Comics Wellspring, they have a little piece of paper in between each issue so that like the covers don't rub on each other when they're sent. So I have like this huge stack of this weird sized paper. That's why I'm like, okay, we'll do like $50 sketches, and I'll just you know, like have fun with them. Those are a couple examples of like the level of detail that they'll be. So that I really like the idea of having affordable commissions for people who, you know, who value original art. I love to draw. It's like, it's just an excuse to draw more. So
yeah.
And I always love people's suggestions. You know, sometimes my favorite commissions are characters that I would have never thought to draw on my own. And honestly, sometimes people will request things that I am already a huge fan of, and those ones are hard because I'm overthinking it, because I'm like, oh, how do I make this character that I've seen 1,000 times like look cool?
And then you're like second against yourself, like, this ain't cool enough. Like,
yeah, exactly. So it's fun to get some of the off the wall ones too.
And we have the digital commission as well, print quality digital illustration, fully rendered color at 11 by 17, 600 DPI, TIFF. You choose the character, simple background, existing only, no OC characters. So here we have an example of Harley Quinn. Is this Ultraman?
Ultra Mega.
Ultra Mega. I'm not very versed with things on that side of things, but
it's very similar design. But yeah, that's his creator-owned series through Image that came out the last couple of years. And yeah, so those digital commissions, I mean, that's a great option for people who, again, want to commission something, but you know, especially international backers, where shipping, depending on where you live, can be up to like $30.
Yeah.
It's like, well, here you go. You can get all the comics digital plus a digital commission, and you don't have to pay that extra money to have something shipped. If you don't need to have the physical copy.
Then we have the traditional commission as well, hand-drawn illustration, option a fully rendered color marker or black and white ink line art, 11 by 17 bristle paper. Man, this is gorgeous too. I love these commissions. These are all so just like gorgeous. I love this the little baby kaiju one.
That one is I think my favorite commission that I've ever done. That was they asked for the Showa era kaiju babies. So it's Baby Rodan, which appears in the film Rodan, the Mothra larva, which appear in Mothra and Godzilla versus Mothra, and then Mini-Law. This is my take on Mini-Law, who's the son of Godzilla. And so I kind of mixed the original design, if you've ever seen it, Mini-Law, he looks like a little lumpy sad potato. Like, he's really weird looking. This one is a little bit more like the baby Godzilla that appears in the later films, kind of in between.
Yeah, so, I definitely would. I'd want to take one home and keep it for a little bit until it got big enough to eat me.
Yeah, that one was a lot of fun to do. Doing the that was all drawn in Copic markers.
We also have some original art commissions as well as 6 pages from issue 1. So you're selling individual pages as well?
So there's if you get the colored commission here, you can request if you would rather have a page of original art, or there's a original art bundle where you get 4 pages. And so I have a selection of pages from the first issue that I drew. I have a couple pages left over that Joshua Green drew for the 3rd issue, and then I have 8 pages from Dominic Black from issue 4. So it'll be basically, if anyone wants to pick that original art tier, it'll be first come, first serve. I'll send you a folder with all the available pages to pick from. And yeah, every campaign, like there's been 1 or 2 people who've gone through the original art. I myself, like, I love original art. I like to, as an artist, I love to study to see how artists, like, lay out a page, and I love to see all the, like, the whiteout and the smudges and the things that they fix that you don't see when it's in print. So yeah, I like to always include that, even if it's not the most popular one. It's something that's fun. It's fun to know that I have pages out there that people own and
people cherish and stuff. Yeah. And then here are some of the add-ons as well. So items that can be added to any physical reward tier: more comics, Kim Corrigan print, a limited edition 11x17 semi-gloss sign, and numbered 1 out of 100. And here is her kicking some kaiju ass. Are these like the half mutated kaiju, or are these like just kind of like designed for the print?
So those actually appear. I did one of the stretch goals for issue 2, I think. I can't remember when I drew it. Was a short 8-page black and white story it's a digital only release, and it is a follow-up to the first issue where Kim goes to Madrid to hunt down the hybrids and the mantis, and the hybrids have reproduced, so these are their offspring.
Things are not looking good. We need to stop like meddling with stuff like that.
And here's the print. So so you can see how big it is.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
They're all signed and numbered in the corner there. So I gotta thank Joshua Green. When he lives up in Portland, and he and I tabled at Rose City Comic Con, and a buddy of his made those prints for me. So I still got a bunch of them.
Art cards as well, so hand-drawn marker color trading card size 2.5 by 3.5 commissions. You choose the character, buy 5, get 1 free. Yep, and these are all gorgeous too. And
those are a ton of fun to do. That again, me trying to come up with commissions that I can do that are affordable to anyone. So those are I think I have them at $25, and they they're like trading card sized. But I do those all year round. Like that's when I'm too busy to do other types of commissions. That's one thing that people can always get through my website and order those. And I just, they're small enough. I just mail them in the mail in a normal envelope. So far, I haven't had anyone say that they arrived damaged or nothing. So they're fun to do.
No, that is awesome.
Lots of wacky characters that I don't usually get to draw.
And then here are the creators on the team for issue 4. Is this all of them for all of the issues?
Yeah, this is everyone.
Okay.
Because I'm kind of like, this is the culmination of everyone's work, and I want to acknowledge that, like, yes, I've released each issue individually, but I've made each subsequent or each previous issue available in each campaign as well. So I definitely want to shout out everyone who's worked on the whole series. So the first people listed are the ones from issue 4, and then the other collaborators bound below are from the prior issues.
Oh, that is so awesome. So this is the campaign in its whole. Let's go ahead and wrap things up. We're going to go over here. So after looking at that Kickstarter in its entirety, for anyone that might be on the fence about backing, what would you like to say to them directly to help push them over that barrier?
I mean, I think if you're a fan of monsters, it sells itself. But so I don't know. I just say that, like, this series definitely part of the fun is playing in different subgenres. So some of them are a little bit more horror oriented. Some of them are more slice of life. Some of them have more of a kind of a action focus. So I've tried to include a little different flavor in each issue, and so I think taken as a whole, I think that there's something that for anybody who loves monsters, I mean, I don't see how you could not appreciate this book. And it's been really fun. All the different collaborators, the different art styles, there's quite a bit of I don't know, like the art kind of all, to me, it all fits, but everyone's got their own distinct style.
Yeah.
Some of the artists are a little bit more manga and anime influence. Some of them are a little bit more of the European influence, and some of them are, a little bit more US mainstream comics. So it's kind of fun to see that all together. But it's not so different that it's super jarring. I think it all kind of feels cohesive, like it could all, it lives in the same world. So I don't know how to sell it beyond that. I mean, there's a reason why all the covers have just the monsters on them, right? Like even though I have made a point of like focusing on the human story and the human drama, at the end of the day, like that's the selling point. Is those monsters. So it's kind of, I mean, hopefully it doesn't feel like a bait and switch by any means, but that's the thing, is like I kind of like to I guess I'd just say like this: if you're not a diehard Kaiju fan, like if you haven't watched every Gamera film, if you haven't watched every season of Ultraman, like that's fine. Like you don't have to be like deeply ingrained in the fandom. Like this is for like just casual fans of the genre. So they're like, don't think that if you've never watched Space Amoeba or War of the Gargantuas, like that's fine. Like you don't have to be an expert on Kaiju to appreciate these comics.
Absolutely. I've never seen either of those movies, and I loved issue 3. I thought issue 3 was phenomenal, and I can't wait to get my hands on issue 4 as well. Before we wrap things up completely though, Ross, you've been on the show before, you know the drill. As much as this is a podcast where we like to really focus on you and your story and your book, it's a nice learning platform for anyone who might be new, anyone who might be watching, maybe just struggling. So with that being said, I think let's spin things a little bit on a newer course. For anyone who is maybe looking into starting an anthology, what would be some of the do's and don'ts when creating one and getting people together for the team?
I have to say that I think the way that I approached this project, I feel very fortunate that things pretty much went according to plan. I'm kind of new. If I tried to do the whole thing at once, all 8 stories, that would be more than I could handle. And so I broke it up into individual issues with 2 stories each, and each campaign has raised more than the previous. So I've been able to, expand it more. And so I would just say, like, that's the main thing. Like, don't think you have to do it all at once, right? Break things down into manageable chunks. Like I came up with this idea when I was still working like 70 hours a week as a manager at Walmart. So I knew I didn't have time to like draw a comic myself. So I was like, well, maybe I could write and get some
just thinking of
collaborators.
Kaiju just breaking down Walmart. I get it. You're like like working. You're like, oh, I just need one to hit right now.
Yeah. So that was like the whole reason it even became an anthology instead of the original graphic novel, because I just knew I was never going to have time to draw that graphic novel. And then the other thing is like fingers crossed on that first one. I was hoping I would make enough money to at least break even. So I have paid all of my collaborators a very good page rate. I myself have just been breaking even with all the shipping and printing expenses, but it looks like this fourth issue I might actually be able to make a little bit of money. So that's always a good thing. But that was not my main goal. My main goal was to just be able to create something that I care about and put it out into the world and get some experience under my belt as a writer and an artist and a collaborator. I'm kind of also an editor and a self-publisher as well. So you kind of have to try to do as much as you can, and what you can't do, like make sure you're getting the right people. So Hassan Otsman El-How, apologize if I said his name wrong, but he has been an amazing collaborator for all 4 issues. He's been our letterer. He is a professional letterer. When I show these comics to publishers and editors at Emerald City Comic Con, Rose City Comic Con the last few years, I've had multiple people go, "Oh, Hassan lettered this book?" Like, they recognize his name more than my name.
He just posted a tweet, and it was like a letter balloon, and it was getting slashed, and it was like, I seen it. I was like, wow, I've not seen anything like that. That is so like just the way he does his thing. He's one of the tops for a reason.
Yeah, he has an Eisner Award-winning comics journal that he edits called Panel by Panel. It's Panel X Panel, and then he also has a YouTube channel called Strip Panel Naked. And so, I got lucky that he was willing to work on this project, because a lot of my appreciation for the art of lettering is due to watching his videos and reading some of his stuff that he posted. So don't. If you don't have a skill set, find someone who does. I guess was the point of that. And don't be afraid to, spend a little bit of money to make sure it's gonna look nice. Even like the printing, like this is printed on nice semi-glossy kind of like comic book paper, not newsprint or not something cheap that's gonna fall apart. These comics are meant to be read, and so that's in terms of like. I don't know, some more advice for Kickstarter. Just do your research and know how much shipping's going to cost. If it costs $35 to ship a book to Japan or Australia, that's how much it costs. Don't try to eat that cost. It's going to hurt you in the long run. So, people who live international outside the US, they understand that for the most part. Now, if you have a collaborator who lives overseas, and maybe they can help you with fulfillment and lower that cost. So for this issue, our shipping in the UK is going to be cheaper because Guy is in France and he's going to help with fulfillment, which we did on issue 2. So, if you have things like that you can do, understand delays and things. I've heard from other creators who have printed from companies overseas, in China, it's cheaper, but your book's not going to get here for 3 months. Versus Comics Wellspring, they have a really quick turnaround so far that I've been happy with. So, just do your research, know the pros and cons, have good collaborators. And I mean, if you can't do everything yourself, then obviously that makes it cheaper. But it is nice to, I think, have that experience of working with other people, because if you want to break into the industry, which I have not broken into the industry, but you have to learn how to be a team player as well. So I would think about it in that sense, as don't worry about if you're worried about this being your career right now, you're probably gonna just be disappointed and frustrated. But if you're looking at this in terms of just getting the experience that you need and creating something that you love, then that's then just go from there. Set your expectations where you are at right now, whether you're working a full-time day job, whether you're sitting at home as a struggling artist trying to break in, wherever you are, however much time you have, however much disposable income you have, however much of an online fan base that you have, and so that's the other thing too that's important, is build your community. So for me, trying to get connected with the Kaiju fandom, being connected to comics fandom on Twitter and things. For me, a big help early on for the first issue I was an active member of the Hellboy Book Club podcast, like that community, and Mike Mignola art page on Facebook. So a lot of my backers who've supported me through all 4 issues are people that I met through that. So
and that's cool though. That's cool that, like, because that's probably something that you know, a lot of people readily don't think about, is like you can grow a base around yourself, but jumping into these other groups, jumping into these other podcasts, and putting in, you know, work here and there, that's going to get some more eyes on your project as well. Like, you know, doing everything as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is like you're going to get a certain percentage of people on a Kickstarter who just randomly stumbled across it searching Kickstarter and go, oh, this looks cool, you know, support. But you really need to make sure that, like, you have a community that you're a part of. If you're just working on your own and you're not engaging with the fans, and not necessarily like fans of you, but like fans of this genre or fans of the medium, then you're gonna have a much like a harder uphill battle to get funded. And it's hard because, like, you know, it's not always the best use of time to spend just scrolling through Twitter or whatever. But if you curate it to the point where you're seeing posts by people who enjoy the things that you enjoy, or artists that you're inspired by, like, try to make it a positive experience. Like don't follow celebrities, don't follow politicians, don't follow. I mean, people can follow whoever they want. For me, I pretty much only follow other artists and, you know, writers and things, people who are gonna be making me feel inspired to create and not gonna make me feel like down. And it can be hard because comics is a tight-knit community, so whenever there's a controversy in the comics community, it's like, if you're online too much, you know, it's hard to not get sucked into that negative discourse. But it's still, I think it's nowadays, I don't know how you can start a career doing this without being connected to something like that. So find the people who enjoy what you enjoy, find the people who are building each other up and not putting each other down. Don't follow those toxic people who have YouTube channels about everything that they hate. Like, that's just garbage. I don't understand why anyone would waste their time making that and waste their time watching that stuff. So, apologies if there's any haters watching this who just watch, you know, I just offended you and your hate. But like, just focus on the positive side of things, because it's so much work and so much stress to create things like this that, like, why would you invite more negativity? You're going to be, you know, stressing out enough about hitting your funding goal, or, you know, how the colors are going to look when they print, or they're going to print right, you know, and drawing the thing. So yeah, that's enough stress. You don't need to add all the extra stress.
No, absolutely. And I think, you know, everybody should keep it stress-free and make sure they back Stomped for today. Here is the launch link once again. Be sure to check this out if you're unable to back, and just simply sharing it on Twitter or Facebook. Word of mouth is 100% free, and it will help Ross hit that goal faster and faster. Ross, thank you so much for swinging by, breaking down Stomped. This was such an awesome experience. I loved getting you back on. Everyone watching, I hope you have an awesome day as well. But most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.